Have you ever realized that what hurts you most might actually be your greatest teacher? We spend so much time avoiding rejection, yet never stop to consider, what if rejection isn't our enemy, but a mirror reflecting what we have hidden within ourselves? And when you're finally brave enough to face that reflection, you don't just recover, you evolve into someone stronger than before. Do you want to know a truth that might be hard to admit? The rejection you've spent so much energy trying to avoid isn't actually your enemy. In fact, it could be one of your greatest allies. That may sound hard to believe, but I'm not here to offer empty comfort. Yes, rejection stings. It can burn. It can tear at your confidence. But it also has the power to awaken something deep inside you. Something that's been waiting. Have you ever stopped to wonder, why does rejection hurt so much? Think back to the last time you were rejected. Maybe it was at work. A project you poured your heart into was dismissed without much thought. Or maybe it was someone you felt a deep connection with who didn't feel the same way. That sharp sting in your chest, that ache that lingers, it's not just about the moment. It's a reflection, a spotlight shining on something inside of you. Not just your desire to be accepted, but perhaps a part of you you've been trying to hide. Imagine this. You present a new idea at work. You've nurtured it from a tiny spark to a fully formed plan. You speak with excitement and vision, and then flat rejection, just a no. In that moment, it's not just the idea that's dismissed. You feel you're dismissed. It's like the ground falls out from under you. Because what you really see, what really hurts, is a mirror being held up to your biggest insecurities. Maybe it's the fear of not being enough, or the worry that what you care about doesn't align with what others value. This is where rejection becomes more than pain. It becomes a signal, a message from your subconscious, pointing towards something unresolved in your self-image. And this, right here, is where Stoicism becomes powerful. The Stoics taught us to clearly separate what is within our control from what is not. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most well-known Stoics, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The no from others? You can't control that. But your inner response? That is your domain." So the deeper question becomes, what story am I telling myself about this rejection? Why does it affect me this much? Because the pain of rejection isn't just about the blocked opportunity. It's about the storm it stirs inside, an emotional cascade that forces you to face the parts of yourself you usually protect the most. It drags your insecurities into the light. It challenges your sense of identity, and if you let it, it becomes an invitation, not just to rethink your strategy, but to realign with your truest values and beliefs. Rejection, when seen through the lens of growth, isn't just something to recover from. It's something to rise through, a stepping stone toward a more authentic, resilient self. You might think rejection questions your talent, your worth, but what it really questions is your attachment to control, your need for a specific outcome. That's where real growth begins. When you learn to hold your goals with open hands, ready to adapt, and recognize that often the most profound breakthroughs emerge from the most painful experiences. The pain of rejection in the end is a mirror, a reflection of the things we haven't wanted to admit to ourselves. And that mirror, it doesn't just show your flaws, it reveals your sensitivities, your hidden fears, and your untapped potential. But why does that reflection feel so sharp, so personal? And more importantly, what can we actually learn from it? Take a young entrepreneur, for example, whose startup idea is rejected by multiple investors. At first glance, it's just a business setback, but if they look deeper, they might uncover something more. Maybe the issue isn't just the pitch. Maybe it's a lack of clarity or a deeper fear of not being seen as credible enough. And this realization, this uncomfortable truth, is exactly what Stoicism prepares us for. The courage to face what we've been avoiding in ourselves. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And isn't that exactly what rejection does? It hurts not only because of the actual event, but because of what we believe it means about us. Is it really a final judgment, or just someone else's opinion, shaped by bias, limited information, or different priorities? The Stoic perspective helps us ask, what part of this can I control? And what part do I need to let go of? Because we can control our narrative, our self-perception. We can't control the opinions of others. And that realization, that's freedom. If that same entrepreneur understands that the rejection may say more about the investor's risk tolerance than their actual idea, they can reframe the entire situation. They can refine how they communicate their value. Instead of questioning their worth, each no becomes a question. What part of me feels threatened right now? What is this trying to teach me about what I value most? Every time rejection challenges your confidence, it also holds up a lens to your identity, your fears, your hopes, your dreams. And what begins as discomfort soon evolves into something much deeper: introspection. But this isn't the harsh, critical kind of introspection that makes you shrink. It's the kind that invites you to understand yourself, not to punish your flaws, but to rediscover your truth. Picture this: a writer receives yet another rejection for a novel they've poured their soul into. But instead of spiraling into self-doubt, they pause. They use that no as a mirror. And in that reflection, they notice something they'd overlooked: a pattern of avoiding emotional vulnerability in their characters. Maybe it's because they, themselves, struggle to sit with their own emotions. But suddenly, this painful moment becomes a breakthrough. They return to the page with more honesty, more courage, and their storytelling transforms. This is what rejection offers us when we're willing to lean in. It's not just a stumbling block. It's a pivotal stepping stone, one that leads us to parts of ourselves we hadn't yet fully claimed. Parts we didn't even know were waiting to grow. The more we explore these reflections, the more we realize rejection isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of integration. It pushes us to acknowledge the fragmented pieces of our identity and begin the process of making them whole. Let's take another example. Imagine a young graphic designer who submits a portfolio full of bold, unconventional designs for a high-profile campaign, and she's rejected. On the surface, it feels like a professional blow, but beneath that sting is something far more powerful. It forces her to reevaluate her artistic voice, not to conform, but to refine. She begins seeking out collaborators who value her avant-garde style. She finds platforms that celebrate creative risk-taking. And slowly, what seemed like failure turns into direction. She doesn't just recover, she realigns, with a clearer sense of where her work truly belongs. This shift in perspective is deeply rooted in Stoic wisdom. Epictetus once taught that It's not the events themselves that disturb us, but the views we take of them. So what if we stopped viewing rejection as a catastrophe and started seeing it as information? That one mindset shift can change everything. Because when you treat rejection as something happening for you rather than to you, you go from feeling powerless to powerful. You reclaim authorship over the story you're telling yourself. Reframing doesn't erase the sting, but it repositions it. It transforms the narrative from one of failure to one of evolution. Take an aspiring author, for instance. They send out manuscript after manuscript, only to receive silence or rejection after rejection. It would be easy to quit, easy to shrink, but instead they choose to self-publish. They connect directly with readers, they gather feedback, improve their craft, and slowly build a loyal community that no publisher could have guaranteed. Through that choice, rejection became redirection. And this is one of the most important things Stoicism teaches us. Our journey doesn't belong to the gatekeepers, it belongs to us. The rejection doesn't define the dream, it simply asks us to find a new door. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the obstacle in the path becomes the path. Each no is not a wall, it's a fork in the road, a prompt, a question: what can I learn here? How can I pivot? How can I evolve? And when we stop fixating on the closed doors, we begin to notice the windows we'd never have seen otherwise. Rejection isn't just a test of your plans, it's a test of your inner world, your values, your flexibility, your courage to begin again. Because personal development isn't about getting it right the first time. It's about adapting with every challenge. And sometimes the most painful no teaches you more about your purpose than any easy yes ever could. Let's return to a powerful example. A small business owner. Her first product launch flops. Consumers aren't buying. Reviews are quiet. But instead of giving up, she listens. She studies the feedback. She tweaks her product design. She adjusts her marketing strategy. And the next time, the launch is a success, not in spite of the failure, but because of it. That's what rejection really is. Not an endpoint, but a compass. The Stoics believe that fire tests gold and hardship tests the brave. Seneca reminded us that real strength is built in adversity. So when you face rejection, and instead of shutting down, you ask, what is this teaching me? You're doing something extraordinary. You're not just surviving the fall. You're building your foundation because of it. Learning to grow from rejection means rewriting the story we tell ourselves about failure. It means understanding that failure and success aren't opposites. They're milestones on the same road, one of growth, resilience, and self-mastery. Every rejection gives you a moment, a choice. You can crumble under it, or you can pause, reflect, and rise stronger. This transformation, however, doesn't happen overnight. Turning rejection into resilience requires a broader, more honest view of who we are, what we can do, where we need to grow, and which parts of ourselves we've left unexplored. It starts with honesty, the willingness to admit not only what we want, but also where we fall short. Stoic practices offer powerful tools for this process. Simple habits like daily reflection, journaling about how we responded to rejection, or openly discussing struggles with mentors or trusted peers can become anchor points. These practices help solidify the lessons rejection has taught us, integrating them into the very framework of how we approach life's future challenges. The more we engage with this process, the more we notice something remarkable. We're not just becoming stronger, we're becoming wiser. We develop a form of emotional intelligence, one that helps us not only navigate our own rejections, but also support others through theirs. That kind of resilience doesn't just change our path, it begins to ripple outward. Your growth becomes a quiet source of strength for others to draw from. And that's the beauty of it. The strength you build through hardship becomes a beacon. But this journey also involves something deeper, a psychological truth rooted in both yogic and Stoic thought: embracing the shadow. What does this mean? Imagine a highly accomplished executive. On the surface, she's successful, confident, respected. But underneath, she struggles to delegate. She finds it hard to trust her team fully. At first glance, this might seem like a simple leadership flaw. But if she looks closer, really examines where that reluctance comes from, she may discover a deeper fear, a fear of becoming irrelevant, dispensable. That fear is part of her shadow. The feedback she received from her colleagues, which at first felt like rejection, actually becomes a reflection, a mirror into a part of herself she had not yet faced. This is the real work of growth. Embracing the shadow isn't about admitting weakness. It's about recognizing that the parts of ourselves we hide, our insecurities, our control issues, our doubts, can become sources of power once we understand them. Carl Jung believed that failing to integrate the shadow leads to stagnation and imbalance. But when we face it with courage, we unlock a deeper wholeness. One way to begin is through introspective tools like reflective journaling or meditation, methods that invite a quiet conversation with the parts of ourselves we've pushed aside. For example, our executive might reflect back on early career moments where she felt overlooked or undervalued. Through writing, she begins to understand that her need for control today is rooted in past pain. And with that awareness, she doesn't just become a better leader, she becomes a more connected, compassionate human being. Stoicism complements this work perfectly. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." In other words, learn to accept your humanity. Learn to face your limitations, not with shame, but with commitment to growth. This kind of self-acceptance doesn't make you complacent. It empowers you to act with more intention, more clarity. And something else happens too. When you accept all parts of yourself, even the ones you once judged, you naturally become more accepting of others. Judgment fades, projection decreases, compassion rises. Consider a team leader who begins to recognize his own perfectionism. Before, he would become frustrated with team members who didn't meet his exacting standards. But now, with awareness, he sees that his own inner critic was driving that frustration. And from there, he softens, he adjusts, he leads more with empathy than with ego. When we embrace our shadow, we're not just responding to rejection, we're redefining who we are in the face of it. We're rewriting the patterns that once held us back. This is deep interior work, and it doesn't just help us manage our reactions in the moment, it transforms how we approach all of life's challenges. It allows us to move forward with a sense of integration, a sense that we are whole, not perfect, but real, resilient, aware, adaptable. And as we move through this personal transformation, we naturally step into the next profound phase in the journey, individuation. This concept, introduced by Carl Jung, is about becoming truly yourself. It's the integration of the unconscious with the conscious, the unspoken fears, the unseen talents, the unresolved memories, all pulled into one cohesive identity. It's a process of moving from scattered pieces to a complete self. And in the context of rejection, it's crucial. Imagine a creative artist, deeply talented, but quietly uncertain. They struggle to fully accept their unique style because it doesn't fit with what's popular. They're constantly caught between staying true to themselves or trying to fit in. But individuation changes that. It helps them see their style not as a weakness, but as a gift. And that shift, it allows them to see gallery rejections not as a statement of their worth, but as a misalignment of vision. Suddenly, the rejection isn't a closed door. It's a redirection, a compass, one that points them toward the spaces and people who truly value what they bring. True individuation requires more than just self-acceptance. It demands honesty, a deep, unfiltered look into your inner world, and the courage to reconcile the parts of you that feel at odds. It means facing the fears you've ignored, the desires you've suppressed, and the talents you've undervalued. It's about standing in front of the emotional mirror and seeing the full picture, not just the version you show the world. Take, for example, a business leader who's hit a wall after a series of professional setbacks. Through reflection, she comes to realize that while her leadership style is effective in driving results, it lacks warmth, lacks empathy. Her intense focus on performance may have unintentionally created distance between herself and her team. This realization, while uncomfortable, is pivotal. By integrating this awareness into her identity, she doesn't just improve her leadership, she transforms it. She learns to lead with both strength and compassion, becoming someone her team can not only respect, but trust. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoics, spoke often about the importance of examining one's life and aligning with core values. He believed that to live in harmony with nature is to understand your roles, your duties, and fulfill them with justice, humility, and full commitment. This Stoic wisdom beautifully complements Jung's philosophy of individuation. Both paths point to the same truth. To grow fully, we must first understand ourselves completely. And individuation isn't a lonely pursuit. It's deeply relational. It shapes how we engage with others and how we move through the world. Picture a teacher struggling with the rigidity of the education system. At first, the resistance from students and the constraints of bureaucracy feel like personal failure. But with reflection, she realizes her deeper passion lies not only in teaching, but in reform, rethinking how education can serve the whole child. This realization reshapes her path. She finds ways to merge her purpose with her profession, bringing her vision to life in ways she hadn't imagined before. Each rejection, each roadblock, becomes more than a moment to endure. It becomes a clue, a piece of a much bigger puzzle. Who am I really, and what am I truly here to build? This doesn't erase the sting of rejection, but it reframes it as a signpost on the road towards self-realization. It teaches us that pain isn't the end of the road, it's part of the blueprint. As we near the end of this journey, it's worth stepping back to reflect on how far we've come. We began with the raw sting of rejection, how it shakes our sense of worth. We then explored how rejection reflects parts of ourselves we've yet to fully face. We embraced our shadows, stepped into self-inquiry, and began to understand the importance of becoming whole through individuation. Each layer has built on the last, guiding us toward deeper clarity, not only about who we are, but how we choose to show up in the world. Because the real goal here isn't just to survive rejection, it's to rise because of it, to transform what once broke us into the very foundation of our strength. The wisdom we gain from these trials, it prepares us for the next ones. And when we respond with openness, with clarity, with composure, we don't just grow, we lead. And here's the ripple effect. When you embody resilience, you become a living example. You show others, your team, your family, your community, that it's possible to rise after being turned down. That it's possible to take the word no and turn it into next. Let this entire journey serve as a reminder. Your potential is never defined by how many times you've been rejected. It's defined by how you rise after each fall, how you grow, how you refine, and how you redefine success for yourself on your terms. So let your path be measured, not by the fears you've faced, but by the courage you've cultivated to overcome them.